Hi, everyone. It's Amanda Rieger Green. Welcome to Soul Sessions. Today is the March energy forecast. And I tell you what, March is a really massive and remarkable month. There is so much going on energetically from an astrological standpoint, a numerological standpoint. It is immense, intense, incredible, rejuvenating, revitalizing, topsy-turvy. I don't even have the vocabulary because it is so infiltrated with transformational rite of passage energy, and it may feel disorienting at times, but remember that any disorientation, confusion, uncertainty, it's fine tuning you. This next couple of months, March and April, to me feel like a pressure cooker or a vacuum where everything is compounding, closing in, and it's where the rubber meets the road, especially from a standpoint around your spiritual depth of practice, meaning your commitment, your resolve. And what that makes me think of is 2024 and the numerology of 2024. The energy of the eight has a way of really testing us out in the world and into action and what it's doing on an internal level, because the eight is about insides and outsides, the the law of attraction, in a sense, where whatever is going on internally will be reflected externally. So the eight ask us, do we have this internal resolve? Are we dedicated? Do we truly have faith and believe? So it creates these tests and also this motivation to rise up, to grow, to keep going. So putting that into play in these next couple of months and remembering those lessons is helpful. And as I'm saying this, what I'm thinking is the blog that I wrote, gosh, at the beginning of last year or the end of 2023 on the energy of the eight. It's all on the 8 year in numerology. That is probably a great resource to reference to remember the energy of the eight, even though the numerology is not the eight in March. For some reason, that is coming through because I feel like there's elements of leadership and risk and reward, faith over fear. There are a lot of good components in that blog that might be helpful or supportive material for you throughout March and April. All right. First off, I want to say March, we're full on in eclipse season. So there are two eclipses in March. We start the month out on March 1st with Venus retrograding. And I did a whole podcast on Venus retrograde where I went into dates and the energy, the information, the immensity of it, the importance of it. So that is linked in the description, the show notes. Definitely go back and review that because full on as we hit March 1st, Venus stations retrograde. And that is in 10 degrees of Aries, which has a tremendous amount of significance, not only this month with Mercury, but referencing eclipse season in 2024. And all of that is outlined in that Venus retrograde podcast. Use that to navigate the next couple of months. So starting the month out, we've got a major transit with Venus retrograde. And I will also plug the darn guidebook because before I did this podcast and I was mapping out just on the calendar the different transits that were going on, I went straight to the 2024 Astronumerology guidebook. It's all in there. We also, the equinox, the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere is this month and fall in the southern hemisphere. So eclipse season, equinox, Venus and Mercury retrograde. Neptune moves into Aries at the end of the month. This is a big deal. There's big stuff. All of the roadmap, the journal prompts, the crystal recommendations, intentions, it's outlined in the guidebook. And I referenced it and I was like, oh, this is good stuff. This is good stuff. I mean, I not only write it and give it as a resource, I utilize it myself. And it's like, yeah, oh, that's right. I remember writing all of this thinking, dang, there's a lot going on in March and April and May and the months. There's a lot in 2025. So we kick the month off with Venus retrograde. And I want to start with the numerology of the month in conjunction with that. So we will be in a 3 month in numerology. And of course, we're in a 9 universal year. And I quite enjoy the confluence and conversation of energy between the 3 and the 9. I have a lot of 9 in my numerology. So when I get the energy of the 3, whether it's a 3 personal year, a 3 month, some kind of 3 energy in my code, I enjoy it because the 3 adds some extroversion, because the 9 can be the hermit. In tarot, if you match up the 9 numerology with the tarot in the major arcana, the 9 is the number of the hermit. It needs solitary and like solitary time. It needs its introspection. So I know for all of the 9 energy in that frequency, it does a lot of behind the scenes work. And the 3 is not about behind the scenes. The 3 likes to be out in public in the world. So this energy creates a balance. But one thing I want to add in for you all to think about, and I do this when I'm looking at frequencies and numbers and codes and things like that. The way that we get the 3 month in numerology, March is the 3rd month of the year, and we are in a 9 universal year. 2025 reduces down to 9. So if you add 9 plus 3, that equals 12. 1 plus 2 equals 3. Hence, we are in a 3 month. But we can take it a step further and recognize that we are in the vibration of the 12. So we're in a 12-3 month. And the 12 has a special quality to it because 1 plus 2 equals 3. That's the base energy. But you have the 1, 2, 3 code. And if you think about this, which this is kind of cool, just numerologically, January was a 1 month, February was a 2 month, March is a 3 month. 1, 2, 3. What does that tell me? I need to look back to January. I look back at January, I look at February, and then I take March and I utilize what I have learned, where I've grown, what I've liked, what I've disliked, where have I been tweaked and shifted and changed and struggled and found breakthrough. Use your data. Use your data in March. If you can reflect in order to use your now to really set the stage for the future, because this vacuum of energy that I was referencing in March and April, it's almost like it sets the stage for the months ahead. So using your time wisely to me is imperative, but I would also think back to, okay, what were the themes for January for me? What were the themes and lessons in February? Now, what am I going to do with that? Because when you take the 1 and the 2, if the 1 is about the individual, the 2 is about partnership, the 3 is what is born from the partnership, what is created. The 3 is the number of creativity. It is the number of the creative child. It's the number of communication, connection, community. There's a lot of C's involved with 3 for some reason. And think about this, ABC. The actual Pythagorean vibration of the letter C is 3. I mean, like, the magic is always there. The energies and the frequencies. The universe is always telling us a story and speaking in a language of numbers and codes. And that's the stuff that rocks my world. So creativity, communication, and those are energies of the 3. When we think about the vibration of the 12, there's an element of change that happens with the energy of the 12. So it's like, be prepared for anything. But also, there's this element of really creating a new harmony for yourself, a new flow. And rather than going out against the current, learning to flow with it to become more flexible and more malleable, more trusting, more easy, more fluid. It's almost like easy is right, or surrender to win. It's like slow down, simplify to amplify. There's a lot of paradoxical energy. And of course, we're in eclipse season, which is about beginnings and endings. So this month, the numerology, some of the pitfalls with the confluence of the 3 and the 9 energy, or the 12 and the 9, are overextending and underperforming. Like, the 3 says yes to life. "Yes, I'll do that," and it's so eager and enthusiastic, and it feeds off of its environment. It is a highly empathic number. It's also very moody. By the way, I think the 9 is, like, brooding at times, and the 3 is moody. So, erratic mood swings, just check yourself. And I tell you what, we're in eclipse season, and by the time the sun moves into Aries, talk about mood swings. So be mindful of your emotions and take your emotional temperature. And can you come at it from a place of emotional intelligence and emotional maturity? I think there's a lot of energetic emotional maturity happening for us right now, should we choose to flex those muscles. So overextending and underperforming, really be mindful of your yes and your no this month. And that element of practicing pause or hesitation, thank you for including me. Can I get back to you after I check my calendar? Rather than saying yes or saying no in the moment, take a pause and really ask yourself, do I have time for this? Is this a good fit for me right now? Or what are my motives behind saying yes or no to this? Give yourself some discernment before you commit or before you poo poo something. It goes both ways before you're like, yes, 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 I want to do that. Or, ugh, heck no. It's really a good month for being mindful of your communication. The other thing is temper tantrums. So when I discussed mood swings, temper tantrums are the other thing that rise to the surface. And I think that those eruptions will happen more after the sun moves into Aries. And because it's quite fiery and we've got a lot of shifts and changes going on. So be mindful of your temperature gauge. If you feel your blood boiling, like, really, can you step back and regulate your nervous system before you react or respond? Take a minute and get centered. Take 10 minutes and get centered if you have the luxury of 10 minutes. But self-soothing nervous system regulation will give you the clarity of mind and heart to respond in integrity, the energy of the 9. Remember, the 9 is about showing up in your highest character, even if it's not easy, but it's right, it's true, it's wise. This is about stepping into our power through our wisdom. And sometimes for me, it's this element of inaction. What do I need to do in this circumstance? Actually, Amanda, you don't need to do anything. So sometimes the action in the energy of the 9 is do nothing, meaning do not act, do not react, do not engage. And then where I always check myself in that is if I know that I'm not supposed to insert myself in some situation, or it's a fight not worth having, or it's none of my darn business, that kind of deal. If I say no or remove myself, what usually happens is what I call emotional whiplash. In my mind and in my body, I'm ruminating over it and going over it. Even though I've said no already or removed myself or not engaged, I'm still engaging in my mind and in my body. And that's, to me, it's like, well, I may as well have just engaged. Like, I'm not doing myself a service by engaging in my own mind. I'm actually exacerbating whatever I said no to. So there's this element of having conviction. If I say yes or no to something, show up for it, or say no and, like, let that be enough. Where can I recognize where I still cling on to or hold on to things? And that's part of the surrender energy of the 9. A lot of it is very behind the scenes work, meaning it's mental, energetic, and emotional. That's the work we're doing right now, the growth we're doing, the fertilization of consciousness is happening on a very personal, private, introspective level. And it's like ninja kind of work. You got to really pay attention to your thoughts and emotions. Are they fueling you for success and happiness and peace and joy? Or are they keeping you in pain and suffering and consternation, doubt, lack, fear, those sorts of things? So, with the energy of the three, what I encourage everyone to think about is connecting with people you enjoy, joyful connections. One of the things that I love about the three is the joyfulness of three energy. People who have heavy threes in their numerology, they're fun, they're silly, they're a little bit scattered, they're lighthearted, they're all over the place. They're whimsical, they're childlike. Where can you summon your childlike creativity and who can you do it with? Because the three is about connection. So, who makes you laugh? Who makes you feel safe, fun, easy, lighthearted, you know, at home in your own skin? Who can you be yourself around? Pick up the phone and call them. Go out and have dinner with that person. And if it is someone who is no longer here, a loved one that you're missing, that you're like, but that was my person that I felt like that stuff with. Well, talk to them. The three energy is about communication. Talk to them and ask them for guidance. Reflect and remember those moments where all of those energies came together for you. Get creative. That's what the three energy is about. All right. So Venus retrogrades on the 1st of March. After that, on the 3rd, Mercury will enter Aries. When Mercury enters Aries, I like Mercury in Aries. I really like Mercury in Pisces, where it's been, because I get a little dreamy. I can feel, my dreams are heightened. But I know that when Mercury moves into Aries, I'm quicker on my feet. I'm quick. I'm like, let's jump in. Let's get it done. Let's take care of this. So I will harness that energy because it's very fiery in the mind. But I also remember what comes with that: acting too quickly, impulsivity, and also a freaking sharp tongue. so so if communication is key in the numerology this month, once Mercury enters Aries, use that fire energy in your mind to your advantage to knock things out. Box check, get stuff done. One of the things that I know for me that it is helpful with is responding to things in real time, and I'm pretty good with that, but I can also have a backlog of emails and text messages because I'm just like, oh, I can't. I can't right now. I don't have the space. And some of it is I want to respond mindfully, presently, and thoughtfully. But what Mercury gives us is kind of a quick mind, a quick energy, a quick communication. So we want things done now and immediately and fast. Take advantage of that, but also remember with that, it's slowing your roll a little bit because your head can start to spin. The monkey mind can start to go fast. And also, to me, with Mercury in Aries, nothing is ever enough because it's such a fire starter initiative energy that is wanting to take action and do, go, go, go. When that is happening, we forget to move slowly. So finding a balance or a steadier gait or pace will be helpful. All right. On March 14th, we have the first eclipse. And I am going to do an eclipse podcast where I go through the March 14th eclipse and the March 29th eclipse. Those are the two eclipses this month. So I will give more details on the eclipse. But the first eclipse is on the 14th, and it is a full moon, total lunar eclipse in Virgo, 23 degrees of Virgo. And let's just talk about that for a minute in terms of just a regular Virgo full moon. Virgo full moons and Virgo new moons are two of my favorite moons of the year. And it's because this is just the way that I receive satisfaction or fulfillment sometimes, is it's get shit done. Like Virgo full moons mean get yourself into gear and get something done. That's the energy of the Virgo full moon. The Virgo full moon always says clean house. And I think of it as a cleaning house of the head and the heart, meaning this is kicking off a 6-month cycle. Eclipses trigger a 6-month unfolding of energy. So from March 14th through the upcoming 6 months, wherever 23 degrees of Virgo hits your natal chart, there will be a sense of house cleaning, clearing, and doing that through taking practical action, paying attention to the low hanging fruit. Where can I get rid of clutter, unnecessary, extemporaneous stuff, whether it's literal stuff, mental stuff, depending on where it is impacting your chart? It is about cleaning house, reorganizing, and getting things in order to have a more quality oriented experience. The rule of thumb I go to with Virgo energy, apart from its perfectionism, because I'm going to tell you the flip side of all this stuff in a minute. But my rule of thumb with Virgo is, how can I be useful? Is that a useful or productive use of my time, energy, and talents? Is this useful? Am I being useful when I sign up for this or when I engage for this? So, usefulness is usually my word with Virgo because it's practical. Does this feel like a useful or valuable resource, or how I am allocating my time? So, think about it in terms of usefulness. Now, I do want you to pay attention on this full moon. And as this unfolds over the next 6 months, thinking about perfectionism. And as you all remember, and I would certainly, for a couple of reasons, go back to my episode with Hannah's Elsewhere, where we talked about the astrology of 2025. We talk about the north node of the moon shifting into Pisces, the south node in Virgo. We also talk about Neptune entering Aries, which happens at the end of this month. So that's a great reference and resource, because when is it happening? It's happening now. And this eclipse is reminding us about the south node of the moon being in Virgo. And one of the things we are healing is perfectionism and everything having to be just right before we execute it. Whereas Pisces is like dreamy, like, let's just float here to there. I mean, and Pisces is a lot of other things, but Virgo is about precision. And how can we be precise without being dogmatic or so analytical or judgmental or perfect that it actually is taking the joy and the delight and the spirit out of it? So I definitely reference that. I'll dive deeper into this eclipse, give you some ins and outs and things like that. Of course, if you have the guidebook, you've got some really good journal prompts and reflections around this eclipse. So I would definitely reference that. On March 20th, we have the spring equinox. The sun will move into Aries. And this is a big deal. I mean, it happens, we know that it happens once a year. So I'm not saying it's just a big annual deal. It's that we have all of this 0 degrees of Aries energy this year. Not only have the north and the south nodes of the moon shifted from Aries back into Pisces, which crossed over that 0 point of Aries, Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde this month will cross back over the 0 point of Aries. Like, we have all of this 0 point Aries energy. Neptune this month is entering Aries. In a few months, Saturn will enter Aries. This is a big equinox. It's very significant. Equinoxes are great times to do things outside, outdoors, to celebrate nature, because it is about a change of season. And I want you to reflect, or I encourage you to reflect on what season of your life is changing. What season of life are you in? And probably for most of us, based on what is going on externally in our personal worlds, we're like, oh, it's a season of adulting. It's a season of responsibility. Oh, it's a season of taking care of sick parents, or I'm just having to mom right now, or oh, it's a season of I've just gotten a divorce and I'm figuring out who I am again after this divorce. You'll know what season of life you're in. How can you celebrate that? Where can you find the meaning in this season of life, as we have this eclipse cycle and season, this change of season? But remembering that Aries is the 0 point, the initiator, it is the primal life force energy. This is a day to set intentions. Yes, you can use the eclipse to set intentions, and we'll get into that when I do the eclipse episode. But I tell you what, this equinox is almost like a processional shift energetically and cosmically. Like we are in a big cosmic shift in humanity. And this is like a signifying point. So I would definitely do something demonstrative to embrace the season of life you're in and embrace the season of spring or fall if you are in the southern hemisphere. So thinking about it from that vantage point. Venus will retrograde back into Pisces on March 27th. So it has been in Aries. That means right around March 26th into the 27th, it's triggering that 0 point place of Aries, and it will retrograde back into Pisces. I discussed the energies of Venus in Pisces versus Venus in Aries in my Venus retrograde podcast. So I'm not going to get into it, but there will be an energetic shift. So not only has the sun shifted into Aries, which will be more moody, fiery, it'll bring up anger, frustration, impatience. I need what I need and I need it right now. Why aren't things happening fast enough? Hurry up and wait kind of energy. And also innovation, creativity, individuality, all of that flush of energy is coming in. But when Venus pulls back into Pisces, it will slow us down a little bit only because it'll feel a little bit more like head in the clouds. And especially around wherever that 29 degrees of Pisces hits your natal chart, it'll tell you kind of what sector you're dealing with and what you're dealing with Venus, whether it's relationships, finances, what you are reviewing and reorienting at that time. On the 29th, we've got a new moon partial solar eclipse at 9 degrees of Aries. And if you go back to my Venus retrograde, you'll know why 9 degrees of Aries is significant. I'm not going to replay all of that right now, but this is a big deal. And when we are, oh, y'all, I didn't tell you about Mercury retrograde. Sorry, I will go into Mercury retrograde. I'm realizing I'm like, I forgot something. Mercury is retrograde. I'll back up into that in a minute. Let me talk about this eclipse. So Mercury is retrograde. Surprise, surprise. The new moon partial eclipse, 9 degrees of Aries. This really paves the way for a new beginning. It is a new moon eclipse, new 6-month cycle. So figure out where 9 degrees of Aries hits your chart and where this eclipse is because it's profound. And hello, 9 degrees, 9 universal year in numerology. It's about integrity and wisdom and completion, while it's also about pioneering a new beginning, paving a new path. And what do I need to do about it? It's the mighty I am primal life force energy. What am I excited about? What am I initiating? Where is that fire starter energy in me that is ready to take on life, take on the day? And I think that's a great reflection for this eclipse is what gets you freaking motivated and excited. And I don't care if it's the laundry or if you are writing a new book, it's whatever for you. Really, you're like, oh, I'm so ready to do this. Now, I mean, I guess the laundry might be a bad example. I like the laundry, but I don't get excited about the laundry. But seriously, take a minute and reflect on what freaking rocks your world and gets you so engaged and motivated. That's where you want to set your intentions because that's the kind of energy that is going to be the most valuable for you in the months ahead. What are you fired up about? And I don't mean fired up angry. I mean fired up passionate, energetically excited, engaged, enthusiastic, ready to to really show up and show out. What gets you in that mode of operating? Like, what is it for you? So just ask yourself that. All right. Mercury retrogrades on March 14th, the same day as the full moon total lunar eclipse in Virgo. Mercury stations direct at, guess what? 9 degrees of Aries. I mentioned this in my Venus retrograde podcast. I will do a whole Mercury retrograde podcast in the next couple of weeks before the 14th. So y'all have kind of the ins and the outs. But Mercury will retrograde at 9 degrees of Aries and it will back up to, I believe, 26 degrees of Pisces. So it will be just like Venus in both Aries and Pisces. And remember the attributes I discussed around Mercury and Aries. It gets us quick, motivated, jump in, get stuff done, get it off our plate. I want what I want. I want it now. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to embrace the day. It's very cognitively engaged. So when Mercury retrogrades, don't freak out because you probably will feel, especially with Venus already in Pisces and Neptune at that very last little bit of Pisces, you may feel a little disoriented. And with that, I would encourage you, especially, I would say March the 12th through the 16th, to slow your freaking roll. Meaning, don't jump to conclusions. If something really hacks you off, really hurts your feelings, really catches you off guard, sit with it. Sit with it, pray, reflect, contemplate. What is this teaching me? What is this showing me? What is this bringing up for me that needs revision, that needs healing? Take it and really take it to heart, even if it's painful. And if in those days it's more like revelatory breakthrough energy for you, like, oh my gosh, this is the solution, or why didn't I think of that earlier? If that's the energy you experience, then again, step back and reflect on it. Step back and let it germinate before you jump in and take action. Because once Mercury retrograde starts, it's not about starting the new project, it's about fine tuning and revising the project. So it's a real curious energy this month in the sense that it's beginnings and endings, because stopping and starting. So what that says is get steady, get still, work behind the scenes, have conversations, get your ducks in a row and do it at your own pace rather than jumping the gun or being afraid that if you don't get it done now, you're going to miss out. I would say pull yourself back and come from that place of steadiness and your true center. All right, the big crescendo, like the ta-da of the month at the end of the month. So we start the month out with Venus retrograde, and on the 30th, Neptune moves into Aries. This is like a big deal, and I will talk about it more in the months ahead. But the last time Neptune was in Aries was like in the 1860s. It's been a long time. Neptune has about a 165-year cycle. So it hasn't been in Aries in our lifetime. This is brand new energy, and Aries is about brand new. So it's a big deal. And it's really funny. I looked something up with Neptune and Aries, and apparently the day after Neptune moved into Aries in 1861, the American Revolution kicked off, the American Civil War. And if you look back over periods of time, when Neptune has entered Aries, these same kind of things have happened all over the world in different civilizations, cultures, governments, upheavals. So I'm not saying there's going to be a civil war, but it's a very significant transit because Neptune is about our spirituality, the collective consciousness. Whatever Neptune touches, it dissolves. There's a dissolving effect to Neptune. It can also be very delusional and deceptive, but it is dissolving something. And Aries is a burning fire. It is fiery and fire starter energy. So there is this element of really wanting to take action. Neptune will be in Aries. Gosh, I have to look at my dates here. I think it's until like 2038. It moves into Taurus for a hot minute and then comes back in, but it's around 2038, between 2036 and 2038. But that's how long Neptune is going to be in Aries. And you all know, because you've listened to this, that Pluto has moved into Aquarius, which is a 20-year cycle and a big deal. Now we have Neptune, another big game changer planet, moving into Aries. And with Aries, Aries is about individuality, taking responsibility for yourself, taking action. And Neptune is about the collective and consciousness. So there will be elements of new insight, new action spiritually, consciously, energetically, and it will start to impact the collective in very curious ways as we shift into the months ahead, April, May, and June. And I will let you know that at the end of October, Neptune will retrograde back into Pisces for a bit until the end of January, where then it will full on be in Aries for the next like lots of years. So we'll get into that more, but I would encourage you to do a little research, or like I said, when was the last time Neptune was in Aries? What are the energies of Aries? What are the energies of Neptune? I can share all that with you, but I encourage you to get curious about it. And like I said, my discussion with Hannah's Elsewhere is very helpful because we do talk about how big these energies are and how it's ushering in uncharted territory. It's almost like there is a new spiritual birth, spiritual awakening, new humanity, new levels of consciousness. You all know I've been talking about moving into 5D consciousness, 6D consciousness, and how do we integrate that into our third and fourth dimensions more healthfully and wholly. I feel like there is a massive spiritual revolution going on. It's all of a sudden it is going to become more serious, real, and mainstream. Where other people have poo pooed it or, oh, that's woo. I don't know if I've ever told y'all this, but I really don't like the word woo woo. I don't use it. I don't like it because I think it is actually, I just think it diminishes metaphysics. And I believe in metaphysics. And I think woo woo is kind of a dismissive word. So it's rare for anybody to hear me use the word woo. And no disrespect to anybody that uses it because I don't think they're using it that way. But I'm like, but no, like this stuff is serious to me. Our consciousness, our thoughts, our energy field, our frequency, the electromagnetic frequency of the heart, the pulse of the earth. This stuff to me is what will be birthed more clearly. One thing I will say, when Neptune entered Aries in the 1860s, that was when a lot of spiritualism came online, the Theosophical Society. If you know anything about the occult and that arena of time, that's when newfound kind of new age spirituality started, even though we think of the new age kind of like the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe more 80s spirituality. But if you go back to the 1860s, 70s, 80s, there was a real spiritual and kind of occult revolution going on with the paranormal and angels, guides, things like that. There was a kind of a resurgence of that energy. So I think it will be really interesting, not only with Pluto in Aquarius, but with Neptune in Aries and then Saturn in May entering Aries, and then Uranus will move into Gemini. Those are some big transit. Jupiter will also shift into Cancer. There's a lot of stuff happening this year, but I think with this energy, we're going to see some upheaval from a religious standpoint in religion versus spirituality and doctrines and dogmas that have really been influential over politics for a long time, things being dissolved, things breaking down, and in order for breakthrough to happen, maybe things being unearthed, secrets that have been hidden, agendas that have been hidden coming to the surface. I think there will be more and more of that from a political standpoint, from a religious standpoint, and whatever your viewpoint is. This is not about being frightened or afraid or taking one side or another. It's about getting curious. And again, going within and listening to your own inner guidance system. One of the last things I want to say in kind of closing out this month is I was reflecting on this month and like the energy of the 12 in numerology. And the archetype in the tarot for the 12 is the hanged man. And that's one of those cards in the major arcana that freak people out, like the tower or the death card or the devil card, like they kind of get the taboo like energy around them. But the hanged man is a very interesting card. It primarily focuses around the law of reversal, which is kind of like paradox, surrender to win, let go and let God kind of energy. And if you look at the hangman, he's got one leg like crossed over his knee. And if you use your imagination, it looks like the energy of the four. But the numerological correlation on the card is the three because it's 12. It's the 12. But it's really interesting because the four signifies practicality, logic, intellect. And what he's saying is turn your logic upside down. It's the law of reversal, the law of paradox. Anything that feels logical, step back and ask, is it logical or illogical? What is changing? It's the law of reversal is what that energy is. And when I think of the law of reversal or the hanged man in the tarot and the number 12, what comes to mind is not only about looking beneath the surface, being able to really find the truth in whatever is being said, but it's also makes me think of the St. Francis prayer. And I think if there is a good prayer for this month or something that I would ascribe to that feels like it sums up the direction I feel that I think will be helpful for me and helpful for you all, it would be the St. Francis prayer. And I will read it for you all. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. And every time I read it, it just always gets me. It helps right size me when I get confused. It's Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying that we are born to eternal life. That is the law of reversal. And that's how the energy feels to me this month. It's paradoxical. It's surrender to win energy. And when I go to that prayer, it simplifies things for me. Oh, that's right. Instead of me having self pity, I need this, I need this. Where can I be of service? Where can I demonstrate love? Where can I demonstrate understanding? Where can I give hope? All of those things are really helpful reminders for me. So here's to March. It's a big month. I know I threw out a lot of energy in this and a lot of things going on. And I have to tell you, this month excites and perplexes me. I'm like, I can't wait to see what unfolds for me personally, for people I know, and universally. It's like I'm on the edge of my seat with my popcorn. I'm not afraid. I'm more like, okay, when is the movie gonna start? Like, that's how it feels to me. So I hope for everybody out there, there's renewal and anticipation and anything that is hard or challenging or, you know, just like a cluster in your life. It's like, okay, we knew there were gonna be some fireworks. Okay, these are my fireworks. Like, how am I gonna, create some meaning in this? Or what am I healing? What am I revising and reorienting? The universe is putting us in this vacuum these next couple of months. And it may feel like a bit of a test of faith, but I really truly believe that this is the quantum leap energy we're in. So I encourage you all to remember that, to say the St. Francis prayer, to practice the St. Francis prayer, and know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, and you are always divinely inspired and uplifted. Always. Everything is exactly as it's supposed to be, whether it is beautiful or painful. Your power is in the now, and it's what you do with it through your mind, your consciousness, and your perspective. It's this gentle reminder that that's where your power is. All right, everyone. Here's to March. Get your popcorn out. Be well.